In the middle of war-torn economies, there's Jesus. In the middle of poverty, there's Jesus. In the middle of prostitution and abuse and rape and molestation, boom, there's Jesus. And you go, how did Jesus show up there? Nobody brought a tract or a Bible or turned on YouTube where someone was preaching. I'll tell you how Jesus made it there. Because there's not a bird in the cosmos that can stop the seed from making it to where it's supposed to go. And it's not my sermon and your sermon. It's Jesus. The Father cast Jesus into the ground, and the enemy's been trying to swallow up Jesus ever since. In fact, Satan viewed the cross as his first great victory. He silenced the Lamb. And then 3 days later, the stone rolls away. And the bird lands outside of Jerusalem. And the seed grows. And here comes Jesus. And so the very first ground that looks like the wayside where nobody hears about him is Jesus saying, even when it looks like my dad doesn't win, my dad wins. In fact, my dad makes a habit of winning when it looks like he loses. Heads up, disciples. Anytime you think I've lost, think again. What looks like a loss is the way my dad wins. So that's why Calvary becomes this important moment of which a man dies at the hands of power, and God chooses to win through dying at the hands of power. And guess what? God hasn't changed how he wins. This is just a side note. I just want to toss this in for your perusal. Nothing screams at us as loudly and gets ignored more than the ascension of Christ. Like people, we don't preach the ascension in the church. We preach the nativity, and we preach the miracles, and we preach the cross, and we preach the resurrection. Pentecostals, we got closest. We would preach the ascension, but only as the lobby to the Pentecost. That's the way we'd preach it. We'd put Jesus going up into the heavens in Acts 1, simply so we could have him say his words of Acts 1:8. Go tarry in Jerusalem, be endowed with power from on high. And you shall be witnesses unto me in Jerusalem. The ascension was just a prelude. But the reason why I think sometimes, and I'm off in the weeds here for a second, but can you just hang with me? Are we good with it? I'm not on the sower, I know. And you're going, what's this got to do with the sower? And I'm going to admit, very little. It's got very little to do with this story, but it has something to do with just something that's been stirring in me. We don't preach the ascension because it doesn't line up with our drama. Jesus isn't supposed to disappear. He's supposed to come out of the tomb and wreak havoc. Because that's what you do when you win. Right? You show up and you go all Liam Neeson on those guys. Right? You go back to Pontius Pilate and you show him your nail scars. And you go, look at this, big boy. You thought you had me? Hey, Pharisees, get in here. Hey, Herod, you wanted to see a miracle the other day and I wouldn't give you one? I saved it. Let me show you what I got. That's what we want so badly. We want Jesus. And that's why we get excited at literalist interpretations of the book of Revelation. Because we think at the end of the Bible we finally get it. That God's been sitting in heaven for 2,000 years going, no, I didn't do it right the first time. I'm going to get them though, man. I'm going to get them. I'm going to do it the way it needs to be done. And then we're going to get this reappearance of Jesus where he finally comes in here like the boss that he is and just steamrolls everybody. And what we miss when we mispreach or misunderstand that ascension is that the ascension is God's seal of approval on winning by being defeated. We don't like to preach the ascension because we don't like to lose. And when he goes into the ground, he lost. And when he comes out of the grave, we know that he won, but he doesn't prove it. He doesn't go beat people up. Right. Instead, what's he do with this great victory? Disappears. And we go, oh no, don't disappear. And all we hang on to is, yes, but he's going to reappear, and when he does, some people are going to pay. And odds are we're reading Revelation wrong, because the Lamb that comes back on the white horse isn't holding a sword in his hand. He's got a sword coming out of his mouth, and his visage is dripped in blood, the same kind of blood that dropped at Calvary, because he's been bleeding over his creation for 2,000 years, soaking the soil of the earth, so that God's victory doesn't come by shedding your blood. God's victory comes by shedding his own blood. Yes. And if we get back to the ascension as the day that God put his seal of approval on winning by dying, we could preach the ascension with passion and excitement. Because it means that the only way we're going to make it is to go into the ground and die.